If you missed it, one Star Trek scene perfectly conveys the true horror of the Borg. The Borg are one of the most terrifying creations in all of Star Trek. They aren't just villains. They are a nightmare made flesh, an enemy who doesn't kill for dominance or greed, but erases individuality in the name of perfection. Unlike Klingons or Romulans, who at least have motives rooted in culture and pride, the Borg are mechanical inevitability, an unstoppable tide. Yet the most chilling thing about them isn't necessarily their ships or their battles. It's one particular scene that reveals the full weight of their horror. That moment comes not in Star Trek, First Contact, or in Voyager's many Borg episodes, but in Star Trek, The Next Generation Season 2 as Q-Who. It's the first time the crew of the Enterprise truly encounters the collective, and it remains the clearest distillation of what makes the Borg so frightening. The scene, a Borg drone on the Enterprise. In Q-Who, the mischievous omnipotent Q flings the Enterprise into the path of the Borg, forcing Picard and his crew to face a threat they are wholly unprepared for. At first, the Borg Q blooms as an unknowable presence. Then, one of its drones beams directly aboard the Enterprise to examine the ship. The scene unfolds with eerie calm. The drone doesn't speak, doesn't posture, doesn't react to the phasers pointed at it. Instead, it simply studies the technology around it, touching consoles and scanning systems. Worf warns it off. Security tries to intervene, but the Borg ignores everything until it is physically blocked. When finally fired upon, the drone falls, but another instantly takes its place. The new one continues where the first left off, unbothered by its predecessor's death, as if the crew hadn't done anything at all. For the Borg, there was no individual lost, just one hand of a body pulling back while another extends forward. This is the horror. No fear, no hesitation, no life in the sense humans understand, just the inevitability of a machine's purpose, embodied in flesh. Why this moment works better than any space battle. Later depictions of the Borg made them into a battlefield enemy. The massive cubes, the assimilation tubules, the iconic battle cry. Resistance is futile. But Q-Who showed something subtler and far scarier. That the Borg are not emotional antagonists. They don't care about humans the way humans care about them. They have no vendetta, no personal anger, no hunger for victory. Most enemies in Star Trek can be reasoned with, tricked, or negotiated into peace. The Borg, however, are not a civilization in that sense. They are a function, a process that absorbs all resistance. Watching the drones calmly dismantle the Enterprise's sense of safety in that quiet scene conveys more horror than any explosion. It is the creeping realization that you're facing something you can't argue with and can't even really fight. The true terror. Loss of self. Another layer of the Borg's horror lies in what they represent. The erasure of individuality. In that same episode, the crew learns that Borg are not born but made. Individuals from countless species are assimilated, stripped of their identities, and forced to serve the collective. The quiet efficiency of the drone on the Enterprise is terrifying precisely because it was once a person. Every Borg is someone's lost family member, their thoughts and passions buried beneath cybernetic implants and collective will. That scene is chilling not just because of the unstoppable nature of the Borg, but because it hints at the fate awaiting anyone who crosses their path. Death is merciful compared to the dissolution of self into the collective. Echoes in later stories. While Q-Who remains the purest moment of Borg horror, echoes of that scene ripple through later series and films. First Contact gave us the visceral body horror of assimilation, showing crew members transformed before our eyes. Voyager expanded the mythology with 7 of 9, giving a personal face to the trauma of reclaiming individuality after years as part of the hive. But even with all those evolutions, nothing surpasses that first introduction. The silent drone exploring the Enterprise while the crew realizes they are prey being studied. In many ways, later appearances made the Borg more understandable, and therefore less frightening. Once they had a queen, once they had motivations and politics, they became characters. In Q-Who, they were still something greater and more chilling, an unknowable force of nature. Why we still remember that scene. The genius of Q-Who is restraint. Instead of throwing the Enterprise into an endless dogfight, the episode shows us how utterly mismatched humans are against this enemy. The crew's weapons and warnings mean nothing. Phasers drop drones, but new ones rise. The Borg ship shrugs off attacks like swatting gnats. For the first time, the Federation's optimism collides with an adversary that cannot be reasoned into compromise. That one scene is burned into the legacy of Star Trek because it flipped the tone of the franchise. TNG had spent much of its run solving conflicts through intellect, and